How's it going, YouTube? This is Michael from MS Computer Videos here with my full and honest review of Apple's AirPort Express. This is a 802.11n Wi-Fi base station. It sits below the time capsule and the AirPort Extreme. It's the Apple's lowest end, most consumer level AirPort base station out there. It doesn't offer all the features of, let's say, an AirPort Extreme, but it does offer some features that both the time capsule and AirPort Extreme don't have, and I'll get into that in a moment. Let's start out with the design aspect of it. I really like how this thing is sized. It's puny compared to many other routers, base stations out there. If I compare it to this old Apple remote, it's really small. It's thin, it's short. It reminds me a lot of the Apple USB power adapter for the older iPads, iPods, and even the iPad, which I was going to show you here and I forgot that. But it's really small, really compact. But this does generate a few problems because sometimes it's a little bit too small, meaning that it'd be nice if it had another Ethernet port out so that you could connect another computer to it. It only has one. And also, because of how it plugs in, it's not in the most optimal location. When you plug this thing in, it goes right into the wall socket, and most wall sockets are what, about a foot and a half, maybe, yeah, about a foot and a half, we'll say, from the ground. Now with a router, you want the signal to be penetrating as much air as possible, you know, say. So when it's close to the ground, it's not a good thing because it has to go through more furniture, more walls, things like that, and it can run into a lot more interference. So I actually have mine plugged into a power strip on the ground where I have it, and that's a really bad location for it. It's by a whole bunch of furniture and a big metal old computer. It's not a good place for it, and that is one thing. It does cut down on your signal a lot when you have it there. So I would recommend putting this up on something if at all possible. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but that is a con to it. Yeah, but otherwise, I think it does look really nice. On the back here, you have your power plug-in prongs, and this, like all Apple's adapters, pops off, and you can put in different versions for different countries. That tab system there. The whole thing is made of Apple's white plastic. Its famous white plastic design, which you saw on the Apple remote, Mighty Mouse, the old, well, still the white MacBook, and the G5 iMac. They all had that same design. But Apple's seeming to go away from this, so I wouldn't be surprised if within the next year or so, with AirPlay coming about, we see an updated AirPort Express, which is partly why I wasn't sure if I should buy this at this time or not. But I went through with it anyways, and I think it was a good purchase decision. Sometimes I think I should have bought an AirPort Extreme, as I really would like to use the functionality of the Extreme, and I can't get that in the Express. But I think that this was a good choice for me. It's cheaper than the Extreme, $70 cheaper for me. I paid an extra $10 for it by going to Best Buy. I was dumb. But that's something, I could have avoided. But still, $70 to $80 cheaper, you can't really beat that. Now on the front you have this indicator light, and it is very bright LED. When it's not working properly, it blinks every couple seconds, amber, and so that's when an Ethernet cable is plugged in, or not plugged in I should say, and when it's having problems, with IP address or anything like that. And the cool thing is, wherever you set it up from, like in my case my iMac, if I don't have it plugged in, the Ethernet cord, whenever I boot up my iMac or whenever a problem happens, it instantly opens the AirPort utility, and it bounces up and down and tells me there's problems with the router and that they need to be fixed, and it shows me what they are, and it lets me fix them just like that. So if we look at the bottom here, there's 3 different ports, and I don't have autofocus here. I should probably turn it over. So right here you have your Ethernet in, and that will come from your modem or wherever you have. And then right there is a USB port for printers only. You can't attach a hard drive to this. Apparently you can charge an iPod from it. Never tried it. Maybe I will someday. And you also have an audio jack for connecting AirTunes and AirPlay compatible speakers, as well as a reset button, which I'm not going to push. So that's basically the unit. It feels heavier than I thought it would be. I'm not quite sure how much it weighs, but it's a brick, you know, I mean, it's a power brick. And it's still light, but it's heavy at the same time, and it feels strong. It doesn't feel cheap and springy when you push on it, so that's a plus. It's a very strong feeling material, even though it's plastic. I wish they could make this a little bit more flush around the sides here. If you don't push it in correctly, you can see it looks a little misaligned. You can fix that by adjusting it, but I think if they could somehow change this design, it would make it look a lot more seamless. That's just me. So that's the external unit. You just plug it into a wall outlet, and then you plug in an Ethernet cable and a printer. And, oh, sorry about that there. Bumped the tripod. So you plug in a printer and then a AirTunes compatible speakers if you have them. You don't have to plug in the printer or the speakers, and then you're all ready to go. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the software you use to control the AirPort Express, and that is AirPort Utility. This is a free program that comes with every Mac, and it's bundled on the AirPort Express CD, which is in the box. It's right in here. So it comes with it if you have a PC, or if you have a older version of it, you can update. Actually, the version that was on the disc for me wasn't the newest version, so I still had to update it, which is kind of funny, but you know, it's not a big problem. So I really like the interface of it. Most routers have you log in through a web page and configure everything from there. AirPort Express is just AirPort Utility. And this really simplifies a lot of things. It gives you a lot of options, and I really like it. I'm not going to go into AirPort Utility in depth just because I have, you know, passwords and stuff in there. And well, it's not like, unless you're going to sit outside and try to hack my network. But, you know, I'm just not going to mess around and show you all that. But there's a lot of different things you can do with this. You can have it run on either the 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz bands now. The reason you want to switch is because in different regions, you know, if there's a lot of people on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency band, if you switch over to the 5 gigahertz, it could be faster for you. So if you live in a city, and a lot of stuff on there is probably at 2.4 gigahertz, like B and G. If you switch over to 5 gigahertz, you might get some faster speeds, just because it's a less used frequency. And you know, I'm not a pro on that kind of stuff either, but that's what I've heard. And this is able to output N, and also B, G, and A. So you have a lot of compatibility with all your devices. It also supports WPA2 authentication for your security, and that is the highest level of security currently available. So I really like that feature of it too. And I haven't had any problems with security. Other than this old laptop I tried to connect to his XP machine, I had to downgrade my security to WEP to get it to connect. I'm pretty sure that's a problem with Windows XP though, so the AirPort wasn't malfunctioning on that. You also have the option to set the I don't know how to say it, the signal strength to 100%, 50%, or 25%. So if you are worried about like your neighbors stealing it, then you can set it down to maybe 50%, so maybe it won't reach their house. Or if you're in an apartment, maybe even 25 if you're just going to use it in a small area. And it prevents a lot of piggybacking of networks, which, you know, it can really slow you down and use up your monthly bandwidth allotments if you have those with your provider, which I do. So that's pretty much a review of it. The thing I dislike about it is probably the range. In my house, I'm not quite sure how long my house is, but on the opposite side of my house, of course this is on the floor, I probably get about 25% signal strength as when I'm right by it. I've noticed that it does drop off really quickly. I move like 10 feet up away from it, and I have about 20 megabit connection, and when I move about 10 feet away from this and do a speed test, I get about 15 megabits. When I lay the iPod I use to test the speed right on top of it, I get about 19. Through Ethernet I get about 20. But when I move to the other side of the house, I get maybe 3 to 4, and that can drop off from there. But I'd say I get a consistent 6 to 7 wherever I am in the house, which isn't bad. I mean, I don't know, but if you have a slower network, this could cause a problem for you. Now, the reason you might find this to be slow, or not slow, but The reason that the signal strength isn't high is because Apple markets this as more of a extender. So when you plug this in to your network, if you already have an AirPort Extreme hooked up to it, then you can hook this up to it, and it'll further extend your signal strength from there. And you know, if you have an area in your house that you can't get a signal, you can add this to the network and get the functionality along with the AirTunes functionality. And what AirTunes is, you pretty much plug in external speakers, and you can play music from your iPod or iPhone or iPod Touch and iPad through the external speakers, as well as if you're on a computer and you use AirTunes with iTunes, you can play music or video audio through the external speakers. So that is a really nice feature as well, and you don't get that with the AirPort Extreme or Time Capsule. So I really like that feature of it. And the USB printing is nothing new. You can get that on the AirPort Extreme. The one feature of USB printing, or the USB port on the AirPort Express, you don't get the added functionality of using an external hard drive with it, which is kind of a cool feature, but something that I wouldn't really use that much. So there is a downfall there. And the only other downfall I can think of is signal strength. Where I have my iMac in my basement, I get a fairly weak signal, and it's about 3/4 of the way across my house. It is going through quite a bit of brick though, so I wouldn't consider that to be a real big problem. That's just me though. You know, if I had like a 2-story house, I probably wouldn't want this for the entire house. I would probably get the Extreme just so I'd get a really strong signal through the entire house. So that's about all for this review. I don't really see any other negatives to it. You know, maybe if you could put it a little higher off the ground, that'd help your strength a little more. But that's about it. I really like this AirPort Express, and while there are a few features they could add to it, I'm generally satisfied with it. And this is Michael from MS Computer Videos with a review of Apple's AirPort Express, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.